I am CNI's Communications Coordinator, and I wanted to welcome you to the last session of day one of the meeting. First, I wanted to thank you all for being here with us today, to our attendees, to our speakers up here, and to our speakers throughout today and tomorrow. Just really wanted to thank you for taking the time to come gather with us here in DC. I had a few housekeeping items to review before we get started with this lightning round. First, as you can see, we have quite the lineup today. We have 9 back-to-back presentations, so we want to make sure that we can be timely. So there'll be no questions between each of the talks or after the talks. We're going to go straight to the reception, but we invite you at the reception to please find the presenters or tomorrow and ask them any follow-up questions that you may have. Additionally, please try to limit or hold your applause between each of the talks. I know it's tempting just to be mindful of time, and then we can do one really hearty round of applause at the end. And then lastly, we will be recording this session, much like we did all the sessions today, and it'll be made publicly available in the weeks following the meeting, and we'll make sure to announce that on all of our usual channels and venues. Also, once the talks are complete, my colleague Diane will come up to officially close out day one. So I just wanted to note that as well. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you to our speakers. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jill Reilly, the Digital Engagement Director at the National Archives and Records Administration. I work in the Office of Innovation, and I direct programs related to digital engagement and access, including the front end and back end of the National Archives catalog and the metadata standards and authority files. And today I'll be talking about NARA's testing and evaluation of AI-driven search and AI-assisted description. First, a little bit of context. NARA's mission as the nation's record keeper includes that we preserve, protect, and share the historical records of the United States to promote public inquiry and strengthen democratic participation. We accession federal government records with continuing value, about 2 to 3% of the records created by the federal government. NARA has more than 13 billion pages of textual records, analog paper records. We have more than 18 million maps, charts, and architectural drawings, more than 43 million images, miles and miles of film and video, and billions of electronic records, which is our fastest growing category of record formats. We've been digitizing hundreds of millions of records, both through partnerships, collaboration, and our in-house digitization program. And we have now more than 360 million digital objects available and online in the catalog. And these are unrestricted and are available for reuse. And we have an application programming interface available for access. And NARA's responsible exploration and experimentation with AI tools is happening in the context of a larger U.S. federal framework for responsible and trustworthy use of AI. And so there is an executive order on promoting trustworthy use of AI and a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights that outline principles and guidance related to transparency, safety, risk management, ethics, anti-discrimination protections, and data privacy. And NARA collaborates with others in the government like Library of Congress and Smithsonian and NIST. NIST recently produced a AI risk management framework for use by federal agencies, and there's a community of practice around AI in the federal government, and particularly a group that gets together to talk about library archives and museum content in the federal government. There's a lot of collaboration and partnership that's also happening internally at NARA with our information technology colleagues, archivists, our privacy officer, IT security colleagues, and human capital as well. We've been really intentional about having humans in the loop on the experimentation and testing and evaluation projects we've been doing. And this includes having archivists in the loop and building our staff and their understanding of AI tools, and then also citizen archivists in the loop. This is our community of volunteers who transcribe and tag and annotate records in the catalog. And as we're planning for the future, we're doing these testing and evaluation efforts, and you can read about our use cases online at archives.gov/AI. And we have been looking at a few different use cases in particular that I'll be sharing today. NARA's first use of AI in production was with the 1950 census, and we launched it in April of 2022. And we collaborated with the Census Bureau and also Amazon on training Textract to read the census forms and read the mid-century handwriting, so that it was the first time that NARA was able to release a searchable data set of the names and locations available at the same time that the census was released. And some of the screenshots I have here also show that we were very transparent in labeling the machine AI-generated extracted names, and that also we have humans in the loop. Anyone can sign in and help us transcribe names and clean up the AI-generated tags. Feedback from the genealogy community in particular has been very positive. NARA will be sharing an AI-driven search proof of concept next year, and the focus has been on increasing access using semantic search to pilot, comparing different semantic search tools that would be compatible with the catalog search solution for integration in the future. And the proof of concept is being used to determine if semantic search and knowledge graph mappings can help with search retrieval. And we are basing the research here on the full text OCR of the digitized textual records, and we're experimenting with an AI-driven search experience that would include an AI-generated summary based on the top 10 results that came back as the most relevant hits in the semantic search of the documents. We're going to be using this as an opportunity to gather feedback, first from staff and stakeholders, and then the public. That will inform future development work. The other testing and evaluation effort I wanted to share was about increasing access through AI-assisted description. And this effort focused on born digital records, and we had a benchmark of around 70% to evaluate the large language model's ability to pull out formal titles, publication dates of reports that were produced by federal agencies, and then draft a summary and tags. And so we iterated by refining the prompt based on our metadata standards guidelines to work through different rounds. And then we had a team of subject matter experts internally at NARA and to score the results and see if it hit the 70% benchmark. And then we also asked the AI tool itself to report on its own self-confidence scores. And you'll note here in this graph that it does think highly of itself. But really interesting is the way that they sort of go in parallel a little bit and mirror each other. And so we found that very interesting, and we'll continue to look at that. And we will next be moving into a phase to compare, use the same data set, use the prompts we used for this, and compare different large language models and different tools. So we can have an apples to apples comparison here. It's been pretty promising. The staff who participated felt like they had the chance to learn a lot. And so all this experimentation and evaluation that we're doing at NARA is going to be informing our current and future initiatives. NARA is drafting a new 2026 to 2030 strategic plan, and the strategic plan framework is available online, and it articulates clearly our mission, values, vision, and goals. And the 4 strategic goals relate to building our digital future, transforming access and engagement, elevating service and growing our capacity, and AI and emerging technologies intersect with all these goals. And it's really going to be part of what is going to be able to make possible the access at the level that we want, at the scale of the records that we hold. So with digital transformation, we're really open to rethinking everything at the user experience level. All the work that we are doing aligns with our strategy and this digital transformation and our overall vision for transforming digital access. Really, we'll have the data at the core, and we will be building on this layered approach to offer new customer experiences that we will be using emerging technology to really help our researchers and the public find what they're looking for. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Berkery, the Executive Director of the Association of University Presses, pronouns are he and him. I am here today to introduce all of you to the University-Based Publishing Futures Initiative. I'm going to do something that I don't normally do when I'm presenting, and that's read fairly extensively from my own slides. First, I'd like to start with the definition of what University-Based Publishing Futures is. It's a new multi-community coalition of university presses, library publishers, and other academy-affiliated publishing programs that perform the work of scholarly publishing. The purpose of this community of communities, and that's an important phrase, the purpose of this community of communities is to share knowledge among university-based publishers and align our outreach and especially our advocacy efforts for maximum impact. So just a little bit of background about how we came together as a community of communities. And again, the three organizations are AU Presses, ARL, and the Library Publishing Coalition. The inspiration began back in probably 2020 and 2021. As most of you will know, there are about 40 university presses that report into their institutions' libraries. And so as this trend was evolving, we, along with the ARL, sponsored about an annual event, which we called P2L, Presses to Libraries, where it was an opportunity for the press director and the librarian to get together and to get together with their pairs in other institutions and talk about issues of unique concern to the reporting relationship. So it grew out of that. We reached out to our friends at the Library Publishing Coalition, and we started out with a series of intra-community conversations, and then we expanded that to cross-community conversations. And the outcome of that was the decision for us to convene a group to draft a statement. I want to get this right. A community formation statement. And so that process went on through late 23 and the first part of 2024. It was consultative. It was iterative. All three organizations' governance bodies signed off on it. And we launched the initiative publicly in September of 2024. Perhaps one or two of you were even in on the webinar. The statement does a couple things. It defines who we are, what we do. It also articulates a set of shared values. So again, university-based publishers or university presses, library publishers. Did I go in the right direction? Yeah, let's skip on to what we do, because that sounds an awful lot like what I just read to you. University-based publishers nurture bibliodiversity within the scholarly communications landscape by supporting emerging fields of scholarship, amplifying regional voices, and publishing a variety of works ranging from traditional publications to new modes of scholarly communication. We also advance the educational mission of the Academy by publishing foundational work used in courses, often at low or no cost to students, and providing publishing expertise and opportunities to our university communities. So the second part of the formation statement is an articulation of a set of shared values. And this list probably will not be surprising to anybody, but I think it's important to know that all 6 of these shared values in the statement are defined. And coming to agreement on the definition of those shared values took effort, and it took commitment. There was not even agreement, in some cases, there was not even agreement within one of the communities, let alone across communities. But we stuck at it, and you'll see in the final statement that all 6 of these values are defined. We didn't want this to end with just a statement, though, so we also made some action commitments. And our 3 action commitments are to build relationships, share knowledge, and, of course, advocacy. And you can see here I've defined a little bit about each one. Provide opportunities for library publishers and presses to collaborate, to identify opportunities, especially for advocacy for policies and programs, for knowledge sharing, to do an audit of existing knowledge and resources, develop sharing mechanisms, and to create shared trainings where we can. And then finally, on advocacy for increased investment, to identify appropriate metrics for on the impact of university-based publishing. The existing metrics, as we all know, are largely STEM-based. They don't really apply to the kind of work, they don't really fit well with the kind of work that university-based publishers do. So we hope that over time we can identify some appropriate metrics for our work, and then develop materials that articulate the unique value of university-based publishing. Next steps. You're all welcome to join the University-Based Publishing Futures group on Knowledge Commons. You can learn how at that little bit.ly. We had put out a call to invite folks to join working groups. I think that the deadline for that may have passed. The website will tell you that. You're welcome to become a signatory organization to the formation statement, and you can get more information at publishingfutures.hcommons.org. Thanks.
Hi, my name is James English, and I'll be talking about how we are using an open standard called Open Publication Distribution System to connect the dots. Very appropriate for C&I because it is literally about networked information. So what is Open Publication Distribution System? Well, I cheated. I went to Google's AI to tell me what that meant, and it basically nailed it. It's an open standard used to syndicate electronic publications. It allows easy discovery, aggregation, acquisition, basically access of digital materials like books to a simple catalog format, typically based on Atom. It's a syndication standards, and it's built on top of HTTP protocols. So all the tech and IT guys out in the field, y'all know what I'm talking about. Essentially, it's a way to distribute digital content like ebooks across different platforms in a standard manner. So why OPDS? Well, if you look at what we're using today, we use a lot of legacy technologies and even user experiences as well as design patterns. For user access, redirects to different captive vendor portals or web apps or multiple logins and features for how you can do your research just to simply access a piece of digital content, all of them having a different UX. Discovery and library catalogs on metadata. We use 3 different file formats for that: Onyx, MARC, KBART. A lot of them you have encoded data for descriptions that you then have to decipher and keep up with. Automated data exchange using a 1971 protocol like FTP, or even worse, you may have to log into a portal to download the metadata file or have it emailed to you just to update your catalogs into discovery systems. Systems and businesses that have actual integration into these different content sources may use vendor-specific APIs. If you're a technologist, that means you have a maintenance nightmare on your hand to keep up with those and all their changes. Let's leap forward to now the 21st century with OPDS. You have one type of common file format that can syndicate your catalog using simple JSON notation, no encoded values. It's open taxonomies with schema.org to describe the data versus encoding. User access can rely on the same simple JSON format for either mobile client apps, desktop apps, web readers, servers, catalogs. System interoperability is publisher direct to aggregator, aggregator to user, user to in-discovery systems at your libraries. This all takes place automatically without manual human intervention, just to update syndicated metadata about your catalog. Sounds wonderful. It's nirvana, right? Okay, it's just another new technology. So what else is new? Well, OPDS is publication agnostic. It's designed for digital content. Well, what can be digital content? It can be video, text, audio, images, or other web applications of content. It can actually represent different publication types that we're familiar with: periodicals, monographs, or books, albums, tracks, articles, issues, whatever you call a publication. It can represent publication relationships and the organization of those into like serials or volumes or issues or collections. One of the things it does that is increasingly ever more important since we've our original first sin is it can handle DRM and non-DRM alike for licensed content, meaning it can support the transaction links as well as the content links to the actual content. It provides accessibility metadata, which is becoming more and more important for us to acknowledge and honor in our metadata and how we describe a content, what's available in terms of accessibility. Also provides license information and availability in this publication format. Down at the document level, the most powerful piece of this is the link object. The link object can deal with things like authentication and authorization to the data, reporting on usage such as counter stats. At the publication object level, you can now talk about DRM endpoints, content, images, and other type of collections that it may be part of. And I am coming quick on my time, so 17 seconds for the community. How are we connecting the dots? Well, we're trying to advance OPDS in the community at large as standard for both libraries, publishers, aggregators, and reading system providers and library system content services to further interoperability. We're working with partners at Columbia University and NISO to help make it an ISO and ISO standard. We want to use OPDS to advance, and we're helping to advance it for simplified access into the open access corpus, using the mobile technologies we have and connecting that up to those corpuses so a new age of digital users can now access that important material. We're also doing that with different public domain collections. For our members and our clients and our partners, we're just providing a very simple mobile access point with all their different library holdings and to different marketplaces for content, whether that be monographs, vendors you can recognize here on the slide, or new vendors you haven't seen out in the marketplace for content for like magazines and newspapers. And we're also integrating in external and internal partner content services. And that's it. If you want to learn more about OPDS, I have a couple of links here. The slides will be online. Check these out, especially if you're a technologist and you're looking at how can you open up your collections, your repositories to a broader community of users. Please check this out. Thank you.
Thanks, James, for that great segue. My name is Rob Cartolano. I'm working with Bill Maltridge I'm from Columbia University. I'm working with Bill Maltridge at New York University and Jenny Rose Halprin at Library Futures to help us advance the ebook ecosystem. What we really are asking for is your help. We need you. We need you to endorse interoperable ebook standards. We need to affirm the importance of interoperability and the shared standards that enable libraries to provide the best possible reading experience and to support long-term management and sustainability of library collections. The challenges today, as James noted, is a fragmented ebook publishing and aggregation landscape that relies on multiple vendors with different standards, limiting the ability of libraries to provide a consistent reading experience for our students and our faculty. Proprietary technologies, including those proprietary readers, platforms, and DRM solutions, create a needlessly complicated series of systems for students and faculty to learn and use, and a lack of standardized metadata, formats, protocols, and APIs create excess complexity, error, and costs for libraries, publishers, and people who build readers, hindering the discovery and use of our ebooks. We need the endorsement and support from library leaders and academic ebook providers to adhere to ebook standards in order to provide a consistent, interoperable user experience and to increase the overall use and adoption of ebooks. How? Well, one is that we will provide ease of discovery, a consistent open metadata standard, OPDS, that facilitates discovery, access, and use. As James mentioned, OPDS allows publishers to syndicate information about available titles in a way that current metadata protocols handle only with difficulty. It supports ease of use, innovation in developing and employing systems like DRM systems, such as Readium LCP, that use open standards to facilitate access controls when necessary, making it easier to buy and grow the overall library marketplace and increase author impact by simplifying the acquisition and use of ebooks. And finally, we want to improve accessibility. We want to make ebooks available and accessible for every reader through interoperability with accessibility readers and accessibility tools. We are asking library leaders to come on board. We seek an academic ebook market that provides a consistent, non-fragmented user experience, and we request vendor development that utilizes these interoperable ebook standards in order to allow for innovation in the marketplace. Content should be platform independent, and we want to grow the marketplace, increase usage. We are working with NISO and other partners to advance OPDS as an ANSI NISO standard. This is a call to action. We need your help. If you are a library leader, please go to this site on the Library Futures page and endorse the interoperable ebook standards statement. If you work for a library leader, please ask them to help endorse this statement. And if you are a library, academic library ebook provider, come talk to us. We would like you to endorse and adopt OPDS and help us with our efforts with NISO to advance OPDS as an ANSI NISO standard. So far, Columbia University, New York University, the Policy Board of Directors, Yale University, SUNY Buffalo has signed on, and Dan Cohen from Northeastern just said he would sign on, so 6. Go to the following page to see the statement and sign up now. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to this presentation on Project Lend. I'm Rice Majors, Principal Investigator for Project Lend and an Associate University Librarian at UC Davis. Project Lend grew out of a concept that most of us already know, that scholars use books in many, many ways, and reading them cover to cover is but one example. The University of California conducted a survey of our users 1 year into the COVID-19 pandemic, during which we relied almost exclusively on digital materials, and our survey found many potential use cases that weren't currently possible or optimized, either because of technology, interpretation of the law, or available digital collections. For example, scholars might benefit greatly from being able to review and synthesize bibliographies from tens of thousands of books to support their research, or they might want to use text analysis or translation tools that align with their research needs. At the onset of Project Lend, we especially wanted to push beyond two use cases that were already very salient to us and to our users: reading a book cover to cover, and data science research, the latter of which had already been enabled in a mediated fashion by the HathiTrust Research Center, among others. Project Lend seeks to articulate pathways to support existing and emerging research needs and to help libraries think about what it will take to make this possible for our extensive holdings. Project Lend is a landmark research project that has explored the potential for expanded lawful use of digitized books held by academic and research libraries. The project is supported by a $1.1 million grant from the Mellon Foundation, and we extend our appreciation and thanks to the Mellon Foundation for their support of this important work. Our project seeks to advance a national conversation about the use of digitized books, while also identifying potential next steps for the library community. To accomplish this work, we have engaged in extensive research into how faculty, students, and others would ideally want to use digital books to advance their research and education. A month ago, we shared some of our research findings of Project Lend with a broad audience of stakeholders via a webinar. A recording of that webinar is available for viewing on the UC Davis Library YouTube site. In particular, we shared the findings of our user research, which lays the foundation for understanding what users want out of digital books and the research process. The input and feedback we received is now informing the work products of Project Lend. We anticipate publishing those work products in January, and they include two principal documents. The first is a research paper that will capture a wide range of findings from our user research, many of which can be inputs for other parts of the higher education ecosystem, including potential inputs for those creating open educational resources, learning management systems, and other dimensions of education and research. But the second is a service plan that will bring together the data we have from user research with feedback received during the November webinar to lay out potential paths forward for libraries in higher education to serve user needs better. I'd like to leave you with some key concepts for this project. Project Lend seeks to expand lawful access to digital books, and we didn't want to assume that we already knew what that meant. We have centered the user throughout Project Lend in both our investigatory research as well as in the service plan to come, which will be grounded in user needs as well as being in dialogue with the research findings of our legal and technology experts. Just for clarity, it's important to note that this 2-year research project will not launch a service. Any service implementation will be a follow-on project. We also made a deliberate choice to collaborate deeply with HathiTrust, writing them into the grant, to ensure that they were included not just in dialogue around our findings, but had been present at every conversation along the way. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Greenberg from NYU Libraries, and I'm here to talk about embedding preservability for new forms of scholarship. I've already talked to this community once about a year and a half ago about this project, but now we're wrapping up next semester and wanted to give a further update. This project follows a related project that resulted in the publication of 68 guidelines to help publishers, scholars, platform developers create more preservable, complex digital publications. In this project, embedding preservability, we worked with publishers during the editorial and production processes, and wanted to really put our guidelines to the test and figure out how we could really help this work on the ground. The embedding process, we would identify a suitable publication, conduct structured context-setting interviews with the publisher or with the stakeholders, do a deep dive into the publication and the goals for preservation, identify major risks, and then check in with the publisher at key inflection points. This varied greatly from from process to process, publication to publication. And then we assessed the results after publication. And I want to hone in on two of these bullet points, the deep dive into the publication and goals for preservation and identifying major risks. We felt that these 68 guidelines are a handful for many publishers and many people who are producing this work to ingest and to use. And so what we decided to do was create a tool, an assessment tool that could be used, could kind of approximate the process that we went through here. So this assessment tool, and I should say that this project, we worked with books and journals who are, by new forms of scholarship, we mean often multimodal, enhanced scholarly publications that use everything from multimedia to nonlinear forms of navigation, anything beyond sort of images and text. And we assisted these publishers in preserving, in making their work more preservable, both for conventional export-based packages and for web archiving. The process that we went through was, it was a flexible process, and this assessment tool was designed to kind of simulate parts of that process. And you'll see here, if you can, it's probably fairly small, but the way that the tool works is that a publisher would, hopefully in conjunction, with various members of their team and perhaps the author, platform developer, go through this tool. There's a narrative-based element to the tool along with forms that they would fill out. And those forms would help them to identify aspects of the publication that are perhaps at more risk to preservation. Those, they would then, the tool then directs those users to our guidelines, which we will be publishing an updated version of in the coming months. So this is a way to walk people through this process the way we've done over the past few years. And I should say both the assessment tool and the updated guidelines should be coming out in February. And I look forward to the response of the community at that time.
Thank you, Jonathan. I was part of this project and it was extremely stimulating. Good afternoon. I'm Thib Guicherd-Callin, Program Manager of the LOCKSS program, here with my other Stanford University Libraries colleagues, Snowden Becker, Community Manager of the LOCKSS program, and Rochelle Lundy, Director of the Office of Scholarly Communications. I am here to challenge you to think about the lack of concerted community initiative to preserve preprints. Spoiler alert, it will be harder than it sounds, and it will cost money. 3 recent publications, a paper by Martin Paulive, a study by Michael Lasko, and an editorial in the journal Nature, joined a chorus of alarm bells that 3 decades in, we as a community are falling short in our shared mission to preserve the digital research record for future scholars, even when it comes to fairly traditional genres of research output, like preprints, serials/journals and monographs/books. As we speak, preprints and other artifacts ahead of or outside of peer review are rapidly becoming crucial components of scholarly research. So it should come as no surprise that the state of long-term preservation of these newer genres of research output is lacking even more. #dumpsterfire. This new evolution is part of the broader timeline of the digital revolution in scholarly communications. We are experiencing, from an optimistic viewpoint, diversification, and from a pessimistic viewpoint, a fragmentation of the research record in the form of pre-publication manuscripts, data sets, computer code, methods, protocols, other interim results, etc., etc. all of which I will wrap up under the banner of Preprints here. Even as influential funders and research institutions mandate not just open access publication, but specifically preprint publication, some preprints are held in vertically integrated publishing platforms managed by longtime scholarly publishers as part of a manuscript publication workflow. Others are held in repositories supported by foundations, nonprofits, funders, and others yet are held in ad hoc discipline repositories maintained by enthusiasts enjoying tremendous popularity in the short term, but with yet unknown sustainable stewardship profiles. Across this spectrum, some have already come and gone and are no longer accessible, while others have already stopped accepting new submissions and are at risk of disappearing soon. Preserving these preprints present challenges both on the technical side and on the community organization side, and I could go on at great length about the technical challenges, and if you're not careful during tonight's reception, I might. But some of the technical challenges are outlined in this slide, and they're concentric. They're layering better-known challenges of web preservation and scholarly communications preservation with newer challenges specific to preprints and what makes them thrive in the research landscape today. Stanford's LOCKSS program has been actively engaged in engineering solutions for community-based digital preservation that address these kinds of challenges. The purpose of this lightning talk is less about honing new technical solutions and more about engendering exigent conversations among ourselves to jumpstart sorely needed community-driven efforts to plan for the long-term preservation of preprints, even as we dig from under the Herculean task of preserving journals and books. Our call to action, the now what, we're hosting a breakfast roundtable tomorrow at 7:30 to initiate conversations for input and partnership. We welcome all stakeholders to join us for discussion topics related to preprint preservation, including challenges of preprint preservation, coalition building for preprint preservation initiatives, and the cost of inaction. Even if you cannot join us tomorrow, please scan the QR code or follow the URL on the screen to let us know you would be interested in being consulted in the future as this work develops. The next step could be a symposium on preprint preservation in the near future that you would be very much invited to participate in. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vessela Ensberg, and the recent experience I had co-chairing machine learning in the library task force at the UC Davis Library gave rise to this vision I'd like to share with you today about how to have an AI-savvy library community. During the plenary earlier today, we heard about that many of you are interested in further collaboration, so consider this to be a call for collaboration. When an AI model is published and a new one is published more and more frequently these days, they are evaluated against a number of data sets. A popular one is a massive multitask language understanding data set, which is a collection of 57 questions across multiple disciplines, and that allows people to compare the models to each other. In some cases, those models may be assessed against tests that may be a little more intuitive to us, GRE, AP exams, SATs. And then, of course, it doesn't end there. There are many other tests that these models are assessed against. There are also the zero-shot against multi-shots assessment. And that is what we're presented when these models come out. So what does that mean for the libraries? How can you take that assessment, those scores, and understand what these models or tools built on those models mean for a library? So there were a number of presentations about library collections. I think we're all aware of the diversity of artifacts that are present in those collections, from handwriting to photographs to manuscripts and clay tablets. And let's not forget the access and discovery of our regular collections that the public often needs assistance with. And for those of you who have medical libraries, you know that systematic review searches are one of the critical contributions that libraries make towards evidence-based medicine. So what do these model assessments mean for the library in terms of the services that we can build off those models? And I'm going to share some experimenting that we did in our task force, but the presentation here is not so much about the experimenting itself. You're experimenting, and some of you have been experimenting prior to us starting doing that, and I know that because we based our choices of test cases on interviews that we did with the community. But it's more about how the experimenting was done and what it can do in terms of building out this AI-savvy community. So we did image captioning with an instruct blip model of 98 black and white images from one of our collections that's primarily images of nature. So what we discovered is that we scored the captions that were produced by the model against captions that were produced by a human curator as a gold standard, and we assessed that in 82% of the cases, the captions were deemed correct, even though less detailed. So now we have this critical piece. We have a very thin slice of black and white photographs of nature and the number 82% for captions. And that is something that we can now take and add on to. And it doesn't have to be just us in a silo. It can be a much broader effort. Another example of experimenting that we did is we tried to extract a table of contents for older books that do not have detailed marked records to determine whether we can use that information to enrich the record. So we used Gemini, one of the early Gemini models that was available to us, and we discovered that it was pretty good in determining that something is a table of content, occasionally confusing indices for that. But when it came to actually extracting the right level of hierarchy of the table, there were issues, and sometimes entries were combined, which led us to conclude that we can't really directly use that output. But again, we can now associate a model, a task, a set, and a percentage with the outcome, and we can start building from there. So I promised you a vision, and the vision is working nationally and hopefully internationally. We can build together the standards against which we want the tools and the models to be assessed. So we would know which model can be used against what task, and then we don't have to redo each other's work. So if that's of interest to you, this QR code is going to lead you to a Google form, and you can let me know if you're interested in participating. Thank you.
All right. I think I am the last thing between everyone and the reception, so I will be sure to use every minute of my time now. So I'm thrilled to be here. Trevor Owens, the AIP's Chief Research Officer, and I'm going to give a little bit of context about our new research strategy and give a preview of the research agenda that we're launching, or we will be launching soon. So for those unfamiliar, AIP, the American Institute of Physics, has been around for almost a century now. We are both a federation of scientific societies in the physical sciences, 10 societies, 20 affiliate societies, and a research institute that focuses on a range of issues related to the future and past of the physical sciences. So to be specific, AIP research brings together decades of research capacities to focus on cultivating and empowering positive change in the physical sciences. Our history programs got their start in the 1960s when Robert Oppenheimer and Thomas Kuhn were really concerned about how we would understand the revolutions that had happened in the physical sciences, and we're continuing. And since then, we've been engaged in extensive documentation of workforce and employment issues with a team of social scientists, historians, and a library and archives, which, among other things, contains 8 of our 10 member societies' organizational records. So here is a view of the team that is AIB Research, the 24 librarians, archivists, social scientists, sociologists, statisticians, and historians of science. And to give you a sense of the research strategy that we're deploying, this is a concept model of how we're approaching our research institute function. So in the center there, you've got our small but mighty AIP research team working between our physical sciences communities, where we have our member societies that we connect with, our readers of Physics Today, a popular magazine that we publish that goes out to the members of all of those societies, and beyond that, the Society of Physics Students, which is a program we support that supports undergraduate students interested in physics and the physical sciences across the country. And then readers of FYI, if you're unfamiliar, FYI is a fantastic resource for reporting on public policy news related to science broadly and the physical sciences specifically, free newsletter. So then on the other side, we have these disciplinary research communities that we participate in. Our historians of science are avid members of the History of Science Society, librarians and archivists going to the spaces where they connect with folks working with science collections, and then public policy researchers and social scientists similarly working in those spaces. So within those bridging functions, we, if you're unfamiliar, we do have a small grants to archives program that supports processing, digitization, and description of archival collections related to the papers of physical scientists. We also give out travel grants to both use our collections or for historians to go out and collect oral histories or visit other repositories to do history of science research. So that's a bit of how that works. Going forward, we're increasingly talking about our work according to these 4 thematic areas of focus, which are cross-cutting. So if you're working in areas related to these, we want to hear from you. We want to think about how we can connect. We're working to support inclusion, a culture of inclusion and belonging in the physical sciences. We're working to advance equitable public policy in the physical sciences. We're working to ensure records of 20th and 21st century science are preserved and used. And in our context, this means we're going to be doing a lot of work in the near future on digital preservation for organizational records of scientific societies. So if that's something you're interested in, talk to me more. And also working to promote vibrant career trajectories for physical science professionals. So the thing I wanted to leave you all with is a preview of our 2025 research agenda. So every year, we're now going to be coming out with a list of 5 topics that we'll be focusing some of our research teams' work on in the coming year. Briefly, the 5 we're looking at for 2025, the first is on the next generation of scientific society leaders. And this is something we hear a lot from the leaders, both the elected leaders and the executive teams of the scientific societies we work with. There's a lot of concern about how to connect with and support the next generation of leaders in scientific societies. So we'll be doing some in-depth work there and also working on profiles to share out about people who are really making a difference in the physical sciences. The second one, a century of breakthroughs in quantum science and technology. If you're unfamiliar, next year, 2025, is the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology through the UN. There's a lot going on now with quantum science and technology, but we really have a full century of breakthroughs. And so we're already working on some projects to be able to tell that century-long story and connect the ins and outs between all sorts of different areas of quantum science and technology. The third one on the federal physical sciences workforce. You may or may not be familiar, but OPM puts out very detailed data about federal staff in specific roles. And so we're going to be able to look back over time and look at staffing levels and things like length of service, all those sorts of things for federal physical scientists. We'll primarily be looking at people who work for the U.S. federal government, but we'll also be looking to understand what we can about the FFRDC's national labs, which is where the preponderance of people working are. And then the last 2, climate, atmospheric, oceanic sciences, education pipeline. This is a project we've been surveying graduates of physics and astronomy programs. We're looking to extend that into climate science. And the last one, Faces of the Physical Sciences. One of our most used collections is a repository of 30,000 images collected documenting the physical sciences over time. We're going to be working on an initiative to start collecting more born digital images and to sort of grow and expand that collection. So I'm at time, so I will stop there. And thank you very much.